This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
If you keep hitting something the same way and expecting the results to change, they're not going to. Whether that's an employee, whether that's a marketing problem, you have to realize something ain't working and go at it a different way.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Hey, Do It for a Living. This is Todd Ersley with the My Shop Assist software. And before we get started with our interview today, I wanted to tell you guys about our upcoming Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar that we're hosting during the SEMA show just down the street at one of the hotel convention rooms on November 1st. And so this is our project management seminar that we do for performance shops just to kind of help you guys get a better business sense and some ideas about how to improve your situation. So be sure to check out our Facebook page and the Do It for a Living podcast website for more information about that seminar. And so getting started with our interview today, today I've got with me Tim Suddard of Grassroots Motorsports. How you doing today, Tim?
Just fine.
Thanks for coming on. I know we are recording this the week after Florida got hit by the hurricane, and so that's where you guys are located. So I'm sure that kind of threw a wrench in all of your plans, but really, again, appreciate you taking some time to talk with us today.
No problem. I've lived here most of my life. We're used to this kind of stuff.
Yep.
We get through it. We it takes 2-3 days to board up and 2-3 days to unboard and clean up all the mess. And thankfully, nothing was badly damaged this time.
That's good. That's really good to hear. So, for our community, we kind of want to get a history of yourself and your background. So, tell us about yourself and kind of, through your upbringing as a kid, if you want to go back that far, just kind of what brought you up to the point of starting Grassroots Motorsports.
Well, I'm 57 years old, so this might be a long story, but I'll keep it short. I grew up in a Ford dealership in rural southeastern Massachusetts and started playing around with cars when I was 14 and got more and more into it and then went down to Florida to go to school to get away from the weather. I decided that this would be a much better place to have live a car wacky lifestyle, if that makes any sense. And so from college, I went to Datsun University and graduated in '82. And so went into an ad agency and immediately started handling mostly automotive stuff. And I bought a Datsun 240Z and I got into autocrossing, joined the SCCA and started putting on autocross events. By the time I'd put on about 3-4 events, I figured I was an expert on the subject.
Yes, of course.
Long on ambition and bravado and short on experience at age 24. But I got real frustrated with all the car magazines because they all seemed to be focusing on, telling me how fast my Ferrari would go 0 to 60. Well, a broke-ass kid with a clapped-out 240Z doesn't really need to know how fast the new Ferrari is. I wanted information on what anti-roll bars to install and how to put Webers on the car and that kind of stuff. And the magazine like that just didn't exist. So one night I woke my wife up in the middle of the night and said, "We're going to start a car magazine tomorrow." And she said, "Go back to bed, you idiot." Next morning I woke up, I said, "No, I'm serious. I'm tired of this ad agency job. You've got a dead-end job." And she's like, "We have no money. We're living in a rental house. We don't even have a computer. How are we going to start a car magazine?" And I went to a local bank client that we had at the agency, and they made a risky loaned us about $5-6 grand to buy a computer. A massive K-Pro 10 CPM machine. My phone is more powerful than that.
Okay, yeah.
Probably nearly 10 grand I invested back then. But then we started the magazine in a rental house in the Florida room that we weren't using.
So it was, it was really just you wanted to provide information that you were looking for, kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean,
they had hot rod magazines, you know.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted was a hot rod for sports car people.
Okay, yeah, just for not making them go maybe particularly fast in just more horsepower or making them look cooler. You wanted, better performance and handling.
Yeah, you had cars were changing, and this is by mid '80s. You had RX-7s, you had the GTI came out in '83, Volkswagen GTI, and Corvettes were getting cool again, and you had a whole generation of people in cars, Omni GLHs and that kind of stuff that wasn't really being catered to. The big car magazines were a little high end, and Hot Rod was focusing on American car stuff, and nobody was really catering to the sporty car set, if you will, in competition. Sports car graphic came back actually just after we started, but they lasted a year maybe, and went away again. So, their idea, that company's idea, Peterson at the time, of what's successful in my idea were probably a little different.
A little different, yeah.
I was basically, I could live off their table scraps.
Uh-huh. So, like with the SCCA stuff, how were people even, alerted about what events were coming up? How did you spread the word on to know when to go?
The SCCA had and has a magazine called Sports Car, but it was very geared towards the people and the politics and the rules changes and the event coverage. And it's a little more geared towards, car prep today, but still, not a how-to magazine like we are. And it was always my intention that people didn't really care about the politics and who was filing a grievance against who.
No, probably not.
They wanted to have fun with their hobby and make their cars faster and learn how to drive better. So that's what we focused on.
So walk us through kind of the start of what turned into Grassroots Motorsports, because it's my understanding that was not the original name, and it's had a couple names.
Well, the original name was AutoX.
Okay.
Auto-X. There's a study in business called the X Factor, and companies with an X in their name seem to do better than than SpaceX and FedEx and that kind of stuff. So there's some. I read something, I went to business school, so I read something about that. And AutoX was an abbreviation for autocross.
I still use that today.
Yeah, the problem with that name is, it was always our intention to cover track day events and road racing and rallying and, all the different hill climbing, all the facets of the different things you can do with your car. But the road racers wouldn't read a magazine called Autocross because they felt that was beneath them. The other thing is, at the time there was a magazine called Auto Buff, which had topless girls draped over Chevelles and stuff like that. Brief magazine. So people were, thought we were X-rated, so we couldn't get ad buys because we were X-rated. I'm like, are you crazy? We're not X-rated. So, and I kept having ad agencies ask, hey, our client has asked us to target the Grassroots Motorsports enthusiasts. And I kept hearing Grassroots Motorsports enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports. And finally I said in 88 or 89, I said, screw it. Let's just change the name. It's a little long and cumbersome, but that's what everybody seems to want. And it made selling ads easier, and it made selling subscriptions easier.
Yeah, because the name was more self-explanatory of what the product was.
Yeah. And so we made that change, and, things started to go uphill from there.
Yeah,
not instantly and not easily.
Yeah, definitely not easily. If you got started in the 80s, it's probably been a long road.
It's been interesting. When we started, we had a waxer, and we got type set, and we had a drafting board, and we'd lay the type out, and then we'd have a little extra type, and we'd cut out and make the corrections by hand with an X-Acto knife. And by the time you got to the printer, half of the corrections would have fallen off. That's the way we started, all in the Florida room of this rented house. And we've been through several revolutions. The desktop publishing revolution, we were We bought the second desktop publishing system in this area in '86. And the reason was we had, all the big publishing companies had money invested in antiquated typesetting equipment, and we didn't. We couldn't afford that. The typesetting equipment was $250,000 investment back then. We didn't have that kind of money. Sometimes being stupid and broke is not a bad way to be.
Yeah, it makes you have to think a little differently, huh?
Yeah, and initially everybody said that's not good enough quality for publication work, and we said screw it. It's better than the type falling off, and it saved us a bunch of time and money. So we bought PageMaker version 1, and started. We didn't actually lay the pages out. That wasn't really possible back then, but we could run galleys of type back then. And then in '89, the March '89 issue, I didn't say 99 or 09, I said 89.
Okay.
March '89 issue was completely digital. I had an art director at the time and really wanted to learn the technology, and he managed to work with a local printer to get the equipment that he could get the plates made and stuff, and we've been completely digital since '89.
That's pretty fascinating, because that sounds like that was very, very early adoption.
It was. I mean, we were probably one of the first in the world, but again, we had no experience in the old ways, really no money invested in the old technology. So we were like, screw it, let's do it.
Yeah, that is actually a pretty amazing business opportunity. I would kind of equate that to, other countries of the world not ever having landline phones. They went like straight from nothing to cell phones, and now that's the American cell phone network is lagging tremendously because we're just so tied to the been tied to the landline for decades. So when you first got started, it was just you and your wife, correct? And so did you kind of quickly ramp up to more editors, contributors?
I had without boring you guys, I had a part-time kid, a college kid that helped me as an art director. And then we hired a husband and wife couple that worked with us for a few years. And so we slowly ramped up. I would say business-wise, the big change came in 2000. Well, the first week of September in 2001, we decided that we would go from 6 times a year. We were 12 issues at one point. Then we did another club newsletter instead, and we were 6. And we decided we'd go back to 8 issues. And a week later, of course, September 11th. So that was a scary time because the world just froze. I was trying to sell ads that week, and that was a tough week to sell ads because nobody really was thinking about that.
Yeah.
And we had just made this, for us, that was a pretty major expansion at that point. And then 2 years later, we bought out a magazine called British Car and turned that into our second publication, Classic Motorsports. Mm-hmm. And that's really when things really changed. I worked for 18 years to do $1 million in sales, and 3 years later we were at 3 million.
Yeah, so you hit that hockey stick.
Yeah, it was always like a life goal to do $1 million. I read something recently that something like less than 6% of businesses in America do $1 million in annual sales.
Wow.
And you go up and down your street and you think about it, and it was I don't remember what book. It was in a pretty well-known business book, though, Carnegie Methods, I think. And so that changed things. I think that's when we kind of thought of ourselves as a publishing company and not this little mom and pop one magazine company. And I think the rest of the world started taking us a little more seriously too. Mm-hmm. When we took a mediocre second magazine and instantly made it profitable and pretty successful. So that was kind of a game changer.
Yeah, and congratulations on the accomplishment. That's 18 years is a long time to build a business, and you've been at it for much longer than that now. So
yeah, we just started our 34th year.
Wow, that's amazing. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
And so the second magazine, I mean, you guys do a lot of stuff. And so, Grassroots Motorsports was the one that I'm most familiar with, but the Classic Motorsports is also, that's a passion of yours that you've now created another publication about. So can you kind of explain what that one is as well?
Yeah. Well, first off, I've always liked old cars. Growing up, I think your teenage years obviously have a lot to do with what you like and what you're into. And, we have a lot of guys that want to rekindle that flame, if you will. But I grew up in a Ford dealership in the 70s, so I was looking at Mustang 2s and selling Granadas and LTD 2s and thought everything just sucked. It was
yes, yeah.
When a Pacer's a good car, that's when things
bad,
are tough. So the Japanese imports were coming in, and Toyota was starting to kick my dad's butt with their trucks, and it was not a good time to be a Ford dealer. So. Not only I couldn't afford a new car, I wasn't one of these kids that the Ford dealer's son that dad just bought him a new car. I bought $100 Mustangs, fixed them up, after work and after school, and number one, that's all I could afford, and number two, I would much rather have a '67 Mustang Fastback than a '78 Cobra 2 Mustang 2 piece of crap. And I know that today they're loved, and I don't want to offend anybody, but conventional wisdom says the stuff from the 60s was way better cars. Yeah. In a lot of ways. So
yeah, I have competed with a very cool Mustang 2, but it barely resembles a Mustang 2. Yeah. Nothing is the same.
So that's kind of so the Classic magazine. The other thing is, we were successful at that point, but here we had a magazine, Grassroots Motorsports, where we were trying to talk about the new Subaru WRX coming out, and in the same magazine talk about how to put Weber carbs on your TR3 Triumph, and it's like, at some point these are two different markets, and then it was getting wider and wider, and we wanted to be all inclusive. So Gary Anderson, who owned British Car at the time, kept humming on me, hey, I want to get out of this. I like what you do. Take this over. And finally I said, well, I'll tell you what, I could take all the vintage race stuff out of Grassroots, move it a little into the future, and talk more about, Honda CRXs and WRXs and new Corvettes and stuff, and put the older stuff in a separate magazine. And that's kind of what we did. I guess, now, that was 13 years ago. Now that looks like an obvious decision, but back then it was maybe a little risky, but it's worked out pretty well. And, about 30% of our readers get both magazines because they like our stuff, I guess. And also, I like new cars as well as old cars, so I would probably read both. So.
And so did you buy that magazine, or did you just take over running it?
We bought it.
Okay.
And
how did you guys value that acquisition?
Well, I've actually bought several magazines, and a lot of magazines have struggled over the years, and it kind of starts with a guy calls and says, I want $1 million, and then I'll tell him, well, no, I'm busy right now. Call me back in a month, and he calls me and says, well, I want $500,000, and I'm still kind of busy.
Okay, yeah.
So, this has happened several times, with people struggling, and they're looking for an honorable way out. And but in that case, that was a viable business, and we paid for it, and the owner financed it for 2 years at a reasonable interest rate. Okay. And he wanted to stay on and be the editor. He stayed on a year, and didn't really work out, I guess. We'll leave it at that. But we paid him every cent, and paid him in the time period, and but made the thing successful enough that it basically paid for itself in that 2 years.
Okay, so, very cool. Yeah, you were able to turn it around quickly, huh?
Yeah, we were able to double the circulation and triple the ad revenue in just a matter of a couple of issues.
And so that was from leveraging your existing contacts from Grassroots Motorsports, and just being able to shift the demographic?
I would say, well, just opening it up from more than British cars. That's a pretty limited market. What's the difference in the collector car world? What's the difference between a Porsche 356 and a Fiat 124 and a Triumph TR4. I mean, it's all the same kind of cars and the same kind of guys.
Yeah.
So, so we were able to open up the market both for subscribers and for advertisers. And, we'd like to think we improved the quality and added pages and such. So I don't want to be too, bragging, but
well, you've done good work. So, I'm just curious about how you do, valuation and purchasing of businesses is something that always intrigues me.
I generally, I'm not the world's expert on this stuff, but I have been at it a long time. And to me, a subscriber's worth about $20. So if you have, one subscriber, the business is worth $20. And if you got a, million, it's probably worth 20 million or something like that. So, and then you have to factor in ad revenue too. But, if it's low, if it has low ad revenue, then that would subtract against that. If it has very high ad revenue, obviously that would be a bonus. Goodwill's a tough thing to, goodwill's a vital part of business, but how do you pay for goodwill? I mean, what's goodwill worth? So
yeah, and goodwill for our listeners is it's a business term for kind of intrinsic value, just kind of the underlying value of the business. And it's kind of just a number. It's not something you can calculate.
No, but it's something that, for one, we were changing the name of the publication. So the name and the goodwill were not really worth that much to us.
Much, no.
And it was a tricky thing to do because we had an audience, it was all British car enthusiasts. So we had to be very sensitive to, if you're not going to use the name and then you're going to piss off all the customers and drive them away, then what did you buy? All you did was eliminate a competitor.
Okay, yeah.
So we, we're very careful to, we still do mostly British car stuff with that magazine, but, it's broadened quite a bit. And initially I had a lot of letters from people saying, "Oh, you're a money hungry
you're ruining it
monster, and you're not a real British car guy. You're going to ruin it." And I kind of thought to myself, "Damn, these people have not been in my garage because I am a British car freak." And we put out a lot of cool stuff and project car right away with a British project car, and did stuff the magazine had never done before. And those same people wrote me letters back about 2-3 months into the game saying, I was kind of mean. I didn't mean, I was wrong. You are a British car guy and you're doing nice things with the magazine. So that was nice.
Well, that's good. Yeah. At least you stayed true to it as much as you could.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned earlier your early adoption of the digital content, just creating your content digitally. I kind of want to get your feelings or did you have any foresight on how the industry was going to change with the shift to online content? So can you kind of give me a timeline and a rundown of,
Sure.
what you guys did to anticipate that or react to it, just to get everything to what people expect to see now?
Yeah. Well, that's been a tough thing for print publications, and but we had a website and a forum back in '98, which is that's almost 20 years ago. So, and then we started in '99 an event. Originally, it was a $1,500 challenge, and then it quickly went to whatever the year was. So this year it's the $2,017 challenge. And I know you asked me about internet, but this ties in directly with it. So I'm not wandering that badly. So this event is basically whatever the year is, that's your budget. You have to buy and build up and a car for our event. And we do a drag race, an autocross, and a car show. And initially, we did this just as a one-story, one-shot thing. We thought it'd be fun. I got so tired of, we were kind of drinking one night and said, I'm so tired of people telling me how racing's so expensive. I said, I bet you for a couple grand you can buy and build something. If you're careful and smart, you could build something that's pretty good at the drag races and pretty good at a local autocross, and then look pretty good. And so we decided the staff members three of us built cars for the first one of these things in '99, and we opened it up to the readers, and were shocked when 25 people showed up in Florida with cars.
Wow.
That had all been built. At that point, it was $1,500, and what happened was a community developed around this event very quickly and very huge. I mean, we have well over 100,000 registered users on our forum, and not all of them, but a lot of them, it surrounds this event that we do annually, and people talk about it and how to do things on the cheap, and it's become a whole community of people. Grassroots Motorsports, how to race, how to get used tires, and how to get stuff out of junkyards cheap, and how to supercharge or turbocharge a car using junkyard parts and eBay parts and such. And so we created inadvertently through this event kind of this monster network of real down-to-earth, really knowledgeable enthusiasts that wanted to talk to us and talk to each other, and it's really become kind of a family. And from there, we've grown this website. We have over 4 million unique visitors a year now. It's way bigger than the magazine, and until recently, it's like, great, but what do we do with this? And you asked about content, and initially we were very careful. We sell content. I mean, that's what magazines do. We sell content. We make stories, and I think everybody is struggled with the same thing. Is content providers. If you have a magazine and you can just steal the old content is cheap and easy to put up. But if you have to go through the same process and pay people to research and write stuff or build projects and then write about them, that's quite labor intensive, and you have to have the ad revenue. You have to steal it from your print side, or you have to develop enough of a business to pay for it. So, it's definitely been one of our challenges. Initially, we were very careful about giving away the print, online for free. And it's still challenging. But we finally decided that a print customer is a print customer and a digital customer is a digital customer. Of course, now that's gotten even more confusing with Facebook and Instagram, all these different, it's just more and more different channels that people consume media. And, they expect us to keep up with all of them. And most don't give a damn whether we can make a living at it or not.
Yes, so, they just want the content, yeah.
They want, and that's, so trying to, the joke around here is, I'm 57, I've been doing this 34 years. That my joke is my son's now full-time in the business, and he's very focused on email and digital marketing and website, and it's like, let him figure this crap out.
Yeah,
but
I'm
on my way to a digital seminar in Chicago at the end of the month, so I'm figuring it out too. But we've largely decided that a digital customer is a digital customer, and that we'll just sell more ads and monetize the website that way. And does that answer your question?
Yeah, that gets it. I'm just curious, how. Yeah, I'm just mostly interested in. How did you make the shift? Or it's not really a shift. It's actually just an additional product that you now have to maintain with a similar / different reader.
Well, part of it is resources and time. I mean, the site's been big for many years now, but only in the last couple of years have we really tried to, start monetizing it. And like I say, that was time driven. I mean, we were so focused on hitting our numbers for the magazines and getting the magazines out the door. You can't really hire a whole department to do website stuff, and it's a chicken or an egg thing. Unless the money's there, you can't hire the people to do it. So our print people were selling and to a large extent still are selling the digital. And both the content, I say selling, but the advertising side, the revenue side, but also on the content side. And we have the print people in their spare time, we're putting up content, And only now do we kind of have people dedicated to each.
To each one, yeah, okay.
But that's a transition that really only happened in the last 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. So,
well, cool. Well, on that, let's take a real quick break here, and then we'll be right back.
We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial.
Tim, kind of explain maybe the worst experience you've had in business so far.
The worst experience I've had, I've been very blessed. I've had most of the people that I've dealt with are in this stuff. They're into cars or into racing because they love it. And there's three kinds of people. There's good, honest people that pay their bills and do what they say they're going to do. There's people that have good intentions. They're not bad people. They're not great business people, and they get in over their head. And they'll usually settle their debts. And then there's people that like screwing other people.
Okay.
And fortunately, I've only a couple of those. In 34 years of doing this, I've only had 2 lawsuits. I won both of them. So I haven't really had a lot of bad experiences.
Were they pertaining to like copyright infringement, or was it, ad revenue not getting paid?
Yeah. The one in particular is I don't want to get into all the details, but if somebody screws me for money, I get over that pretty quickly. Money's not that important to me. But when somebody says they're my friend and then, treats me like a friend and then screws me, that's happened once or twice. Once actually, and that hurt pretty bad. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
have you ever had an instance where you didn't meet a deadline to get the magazine to print?
Now, one way or another, we've always, it's varied it's going to vary a week right now with this hurricane. So, it can vary by a few days, but we have a pretty set production schedule and we're pretty close to it. We also build in a week a couple of times a year in case we get behind.
Okay.
So, so that, so what we'll do is we'll leave an issue at a printer for a week. Just because we try to, with the 2 publications, we put out something. Well, the 2 publications, every 3 weeks we put something out, but then we do, we just did a trackside companion, a booklet for Grassroots, and a glove box companion, a booklet for the classic readers that just has kind of like everything we've learned over the last 30 years, something to keep in your glove box to help you get your car running if it breaks on the side of the road, or for Grassroots, how to prep for an autocross or what to bring to a track day event, that kind of stuff. So we put something out a lot.
Okay, gotcha. So what's something right now that you're doing that's got you fired up?
Well, the big thing now is what started as Facebook Live is now GRM Live. Every Wednesday night we do a show, about an hour-long show, and interactive. With Facebook Live, it's interactive, and then we also put it on our YouTube channel. So, we've known for a while we needed to move to video. Mm-hmm. That's certainly, one. I said a few minutes ago, there's so many different mediums, and people want their Grassroots Motorsports, so we're doing it that way now, and that's J.G. Pasterjak, my art director, been with me almost 30 years, is leading the charge on that. He's doing a great job, and it seems to be popular. CRC Chemicals has been our main sponsor on that. They've been an awesome partner and help us develop that. So that is something that we see a lot of future in that. Again, it's resources and, putting resources to it. We want to do one for Classic Motorsports too. That's coming next, but, then it'll take some more time and resources.
And so what are you guys discussing or doing on that Facebook Live show?
Well, every week it's something different. Last night it was all about the hurricane and how it affected us. And it's, again, we have this massive forum and a lot of the viewership is there. And, it's people, it's like a family and we just talk to them. And, but normally we'll interview like a Lee Grimes from Coney and learn all about shocks. Or next week we're going to take some Evans cooling system, which is a waterless cooling, and show people how that works. And we just pick a topic every week, either work with a shop or we do project car stuff and just, basically bring the magazine to life.
Very cool. Yeah, it's definitely cool. And I've checked out a few episodes, and I'll keep a lookout for more of them because they are entertaining. And, I like that you guys
we're getting better at it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes, you got to get used to it. That's kind of how we were when we first started. When we purchased this podcast, we were pretty bad at it, and we feel like we've gotten a lot better at it over the year. I want to kind of move on to like promoting the magazine. So, in the beginning, what was the primary method of getting more people to subscribe to the magazine, and then transition that, into what you have to do now? So, what are you guys doing from the start to now to kind of get the word out for the magazine?
You'll love this. To start, I sat up every night and I got lists of different, I'd go through like the SCCA magazine and I'd find different clubs, different SCCA regions or different independent autocross clubs. And I'm 24 years old and I'm calling them on the phone and saying, hey, I'm going to start my own car magazine and I'll send all your members a copy if you'll send me a list. And a lot of them did. And the first issue, I think we typed in, you didn't just send an Excel file.
Yeah, you typed in each name and address.
They would mail me a hand-printed list, and we would sit there with the K-Pro and type in their names into some crude database. I don't remember what it was called. And when we printed out the labels, this is a good one too. When we started, we'd have our friends come over the first issue, and we'd buy the beer, and we'd have label sticking parties where we'd stick the labels on the magazine to mail them out. And we did 4,000 or 5,000 this way. It took 3-4 weeks to get them all done this way. We quickly ran out of friends because it was boring. So after that, I called the printer and I said, God, I know I can't afford to have you guys do it, but there's got to be a better way to put these labels on the magazine. And I think the printer said, oh yeah, we can do that for about $15 1,000. So basically, I'd used up every friend I'd had for less than $100. Well, you don't know everything when you start in business.
Oh yeah, yeah. And, we honestly we have done that. We have done that as well. We did a flyer right when we started our software business, and we printed out a bunch of them. And we were like, oh, let's mail these out, and we literally slapped on like 900 stickers, and then we were like, never doing that again.
No.
So I feel you there, but yeah. So it started out by you were just knocking on doors, huh?
Yeah, I mean, literally. That got us started. A lot of people wanted to help us when we started. They knew we were young. They knew we weren't from some publishing conglomerate. They knew we were just a couple of kids trying to get something started. But after a couple of years, everybody started wanting to be paid for stuff. And, it's fun to help out the new magazine for 6 months or a year, but then after that, it's like, you guys need to stand on your own 2 feet. So that was it was almost easier the first year than it was the second year. But we trudged on and we advertised in other places. Mainly I would say the most successful thing we've done is just be real. We go to a lot of events. We probably travel to 30, 40 events a year. We participate, we cover, we're just, try to be a genuine part of the community. When email started, remember when we started, a fax machine didn't exist. I remember, get my years right here, but somewhere in the late 80s, we borrowed a friend's fax machine when they became popular, because people started asking, can we fax back that contract or what have you? And so my buddy, some friend, but I think he charged me $1 a page to have me fax stuff. And then soon, like within a few months, we're like, oh, we ought to buy one of these fax machines. So fax machines came on very suddenly. FedEx, I don't even think was a thing when we started, or was barely a thing. it's funny how we in business tend to communicate. It's like there's ever increasing ability to be behind schedule and last minute. You know, it used to be you had to overnight stuff, then you could fax something. Now you can email it. And when we started with email, we'd sit there for an hour trying to make the CompuServe account and the modems work with each other. You know, the horrible noise and you know, the idea of just emailing huge photos and Dropbox and all this technology we have today was, I mean, that was not even conceivable 30 years ago. Maybe some could conceive it, but I certainly couldn't. So, you know, that's changed. So as far as marketing goes, the event stuff, we've built a thriving event business, which also promotes our brand. We do a huge thing at the 24 Hours of Daytona called the GRM Experience. We're quite involved with the Amelia Island Concours. We do a road tour that for classic cars that starts and ends at Amelia Island. At the Monterey Car Week, we host a welcome party, and we're partners on the Concours de Le Mans, which is kind of a show for oddball cars and unloved orphans. And
okay.
Then we do our challenge, our $2,017 challenge event, which is coming up in a few weeks. And we do something called the Ultimate Track Car Challenge, which is basically our no rules, run what you brung thing. We do that in partnership with NASA at VIR. So we've developed different ways. But rather than, I mean, we do a lot of email marketing. We've got an email list of over 150,000 people now, and we do a newsletter that's quite successful. My son actually runs that. And we do a monthly e-newsletter for both magazines that has, you know, both some promotional stuff in it and some bonus content that you can't get in the magazine. And of course, our website's a very good promotional tool too.
So is the sales funnel still directed towards getting magazine subscriptions?
Yes, that's changing too. There's digital magazine subscriptions. We figured out that, you know, that was an interesting arena. You know, there was 50 different companies that all were going to be your digital magazine provider. I think 3 of them are left probably. And I think we picked 2 or 3 wrong ones before we picked the right one. And so that was a challenge, but that we finally got mastered. And that, you know, all these new technologies, there's a learning curve. That you know, somebody has to pay for it. Usually it's me.
Yeah, because the digital magazine is like, it's just trying to mimic the feel of a magazine on your computer, correct? Like with pages.
Well, initially there was so many other things that could be done with it, but then, as you know, the consumers didn't end up really wanting a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, trying to figure out, you know, everybody wants, and then, you know, when they get it, they're like, I kind of like the old print magazine better. So,
okay.
It's like, well, thanks. I just invested a lot of time and money to give you what you said you wanted. But really, you know, and I say to people that as long as people go to the bathroom every day, we're in pretty good shape with print magazines.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I like hearing that you do a lot of events. That's something that, you know, a lot of small businesses struggle with. You know, even from the, you know, install shops, you know, custom performance shops or aftermarket shops or stuff like that, is how do you get more people? And, you know, we always kind of suggest that just go to events, you know, just talk to people and see what they need or if you can help them, and that'll build that relationship. And so sounds like that's what you've been doing and has been successful with it for decades now, just, you know, going to events and being visible.
I think word gets out. You're either real or you're not. And whether you're a small shop or a national magazine, you're either in the community, you're involved. You know what we call it around here is give a shit. You know, how much give a shit do you have? And if you don't have it, you're not going to make it. And,
yeah, people will be able to tell, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I got up at 5 this morning, went out and was working on a project car this morning. That's what I do, you know, and I answer emails. When the whole email concept started, I had a rule here that we would answer every email. Well, that was an easy rule because you got about 3 emails a day.
Okay.
Right? And of course, now the next frontier is texting. I told my son a year ago, texting is not a viable business communication, and I'm not doing that. And he took me to task, and guess what? Texting is a viable communication tool, although I don't like it.
Yeah, I still prefer email, but
well, I
can
can go to dinner with my wife and get back and answer an email at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, whereas if you text me right during dinner, it's annoying. So
yeah.
But I mean, that's, part of a modern world, and we're all learning to adapt to it. So.
And you guys also have a booth I see you guys at PRI. Do you do trade shows very much?
Yeah, we do SEMA and PRI. And then we do major events. We just had a major presence. We hosted a party at the Solo Nationals, which had SCCA Solo Nationals, had 1,350 entrants. We've got a booth and a presence at the SCCA Runoffs, which is at Indy, the end of the month. They've got almost 1,100 people entered for that event. So we're out there. We were at the Put-in Bay vintage races last week. We're somewhere almost every week.
That sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's to write about it and a race and run a booth. It keeps you busy and do photography. You usually got to get a little help to pull them all off, but we learned to do it.
With your articles, you've mentioned a little bit about the people that write articles. How many people, I don't really know the term, but are they contributing writers or are they full-time employees? How does the demographic of the business really what does it look like?
I think we've got one guy that's full-time editorial.
Okay.
That's David Wallens. He's our editorial director. Sarah does some stories, a lot of editing and layout. I'm the number 2 writer for Classic and I think number 5 for Grassroots now.
That's on like quantity of articles?
Yeah, what I do every year is I do a sheet saying who wrote what. It's just nice to know, how much, which freelancers are contributing how much. I mean, and also I got to a point where I had a full-time guy writing, and I wrote twice as much a year as he did.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, something's wrong with this picture because I don't work that hard at it. I guess I work pretty hard at it, but that doesn't seem fair to part-time. I'm doing more than a full-time guy. Yeah. He's not with us anymore.
Okay, yeah.
JG, my art director, writes. My wife and partner, Margie, writes some, does a lot of editing. My son, Tom, does a lot of the writing. He also does our e-newsletter, and also he's branched into sales now because if he wants to take over the business someday, he's going to have to learn the sales end of it, which he's done very well. And Ed, our web guy, does some writing too. So, but we do, I think, somewhere around 70% of the writing in-house and 30% is freelancers.
Yeah, because Andy Hollis is the one who I know. He competes with me in multiple things, so I see him around a lot. He's
a great reference. I mean, he knows more about autocrossing and racing than I'll ever know, and I've been doing it my whole life. I mean, that guy's amazing. But he's one of our primary freelancers. Does a lot of our tire tests and stuff like that. He's really good at that. And it's funny. There's some people that write for a living. Stephen Cole Smith is a really good writer and writes for us more and more now. He was with the Orlando Sentinel, also Auto Week, Car and Driver, Motor Trend. He's been at all the big guys. But that's a guy that he's just a hell of a writer. Mm-hmm. And then there's guys that just have a story. You'll meet the Corvair Yanko Stinger wacko of the world. This guy, he's been dedicated his whole life to this one car, and he's got that story in him. And it doesn't matter how badly that guy writes. He knows more about that one subject than anybody ever will. So you get the story from him and just you put it into English. So sometimes that guy can speak English, but a lot of times he lives under a rock somewhere. But
he's buried in books and sheets of drawings of the cars.
But there's definitely two kinds of writers. There's a guy that's got one story and that's it, and then there's a guy that can write about anything. He just knows how to do the research.
So it spans the gamut of different contributing writers, but most of it is done by your core employees.
About 5 of us that do most of it. But again, only one is charged full time with writing. So, but part of it is we all love I've always found that it's better to take somebody that loves the subject matter and teach them the business around it rather than take somebody that has no interest and try to make them love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
that makes sense. Well, let's pause here for a second commercial break, and then we'll be right back. We are hosting our next Essentials of Operating a Shop seminar during the SEMA show in Las Vegas on Wednesday, November 1st, 2017. We developed this one-day seminar to help shop owners rethink how they run their business. We cover topics like employee management, best practices for accounting, improving customer service, and many more. It doesn't matter whether you have been in business for 20 years or haven't even opened yet. You will get useful information and helpful business practices to improve the operations of your shop and be more profitable. You can find out more information about the seminar and sign up through our events tab on the Do It for a Living Facebook page or by visiting our website at doitforalivingpodcast.com. Yeah, so, this is kind of a tough question, but why do you think you guys are still around while, a lot of other magazines have either ceased to exist or have been kind of absorbed into other publications?
Well, I think people want good information. And good information is hard to find on the, internet. There's nobody regulating information on the internet. So people are always going to want good information, and people are also always going to want give a shit, and we have a community, a family. They trust us. We've earned this, I guess, right or privilege to have these friends and customers and readers and but it's you got to take care of them. If they email you at midnight and say they didn't get the T-shirt you promised them, the owner of the company writes them right back and says, "Hey, we'll get that out to you in the morning." That's the way we run things, and that in a ever more faceless world and being stuck on hold, and one of the things here is you'll never have an automated answering service. One of us always picks up the phone. I won't have. I know it's more expensive, but I won't have it any other way. It's just, nothing gets me madder than when somebody says, "Hey, I didn't get a response from you guys." So that to me is crucial. Keep giving people real information. I think companies that are, kind of move that way are making it work. Kind of specialty niche type companies. Mm-hmm. They're adapting. And the other thing is we do have to adapt. Like I said, we had a forum and a website in 98. We were completely digital in 89. We weren't the first ones to make the jump to video, but we've made that jump. So we will continue to adapt and by staying kind of small and loose, we can change things quite quickly here.
That's very cool and great to hear. Yeah. Yeah, you really have to be changing with the times, and the times are changing fast. So keep on keeping on, I guess.
Yeah.
What's kind of your 1-year plan for the business?
Well, I personally have 1-year goals, and I actually put them in my iCal, and quarterly they come up, and I see if I'm maintaining them. Or living up to them. Corporately, I'd say monetizing the website and making it pay for itself is happening quickly now. Obviously, this GRM Live is and we're getting that monetized and all figured out, and adapting a classic version of that is something that's happening, and kind of perfecting our event business too.
Very cool. Yeah, I like to hear setting goals for yourself and then auditing them periodically is something that can really keep you on track for where you want to take the business. So then how about a big, hairy, audacious goal? Where do you want to see the business in 5 years?
Well, I'm 57 and been doing it for 34 years. I'd like to just do the fun stuff in another 5 years and have my son and the rest of my crew handle the heavy lifting.
Manage the business?
Yeah, I want to screw around, build race cars, and run around the country. I don't mind being the front man, but I like going to Jay Leno's shop and hanging out with him and meeting all these cool people. And I've paid my dues, but worrying about whether we've hit our nut this month and who owes us money, I'd rather not have to worry about after another 5 years. So
yeah, lift a little bit of the stress off your shoulders.
Well, it'd be nice. So that's already starting to happen. I don't think
you're phasing in your retirement, huh?
Well, I don't think I'll ever retire, but I'd like to have more time to I'd love to have a lot of time to develop more of this television stuff. So
very cool. Well, for our listeners, can you suggest an action item that will help improve their situation?
Well, for one, if you don't make a plan, if you're just putting out fires all day, nothing's ever going to change. The other thing is if you keep hitting something the same way and expecting the results to change, going at something every day, all day, and you expect the results to change, they're not going to. So you need to figure out a different way to look at something, whether that's an employee, whether that's a marketing problem, or you have to realize something ain't working and go at it a different way. And that's been hard for me to learn. Is I just my answer was always just work harder and it'll fix it, but it won't. So
it makes sense.
Definitely you need to write down what if you can't see where you want to be or what you want to do, it is never going to happen. If you make a plan, you might fail. If you don't make a plan, you're definitely going to fail.
And so one question, I know you probably have many vehicles, but I really want to know kind of like, what is your daily driver car that you use most of the time?
This is almost embarrassing, but I'm the world's biggest Honda Ridgeline fan.
Do you like the truck, huh?
I bought the first one when it first came out. I said, God, that's an ugly thing. Who would ever want that?
With that weird bed body line?
Yeah. And they drop stuff off every week for us to try out, all the different manufacturers because they want us writing about stuff. And we got one within 20 minutes of having it. I said, that's going to be my next vehicle. And I ended up buying one in 2005, drove it 11 years and 235,000 miles, and then sold it to a buddy of mine when the new one just came out last year. I talked to Honda and said, I want a new one. And they said, well, you've been our biggest fan and been right about it, so we'll cut you a deal on one. And
that's great.
So
that's a good perk of the job.
Yeah, so I have a new one that I absolutely adore. I mean, from, cleaning up after the hurricane and towing brush around to towing race cars, carrying parts. I do a lot of my own work, and I'm working on projects all the time. And so every day my, office has got a fender or a radiator or an engine or something that's coming or going, and so I need a truck, but I also need a comfortable vehicle, something reliable. The new one's pretty fuel efficient, and so yeah, I'm a big fan. I have a fleet of about 20 stupid cars from a 29 Ford that my grandfather sold new, and then my dad and I fixed up when I was 14 to a 69 Triumph TR6 that was the last car my dad and I ever built before we passed from Alzheimer's. To I race a Triumph TR3. I've got a Shelby Mustang and a Sunbeam Tiger, so I've been pretty blessed. I've kept most of these different project cars we've written about over the years.
That's awesome. Yeah. We're always just interested in what people drive daily, because oftentimes it's not a race, it's not a cool car. It's just something comfortable to get them, and they like that car the most. The last guy I interviewed has a minivan, so he was like, I love my minivan.
I've had lots of minivans too. Everybody poo-poos them, but they're fantastic vehicles. But on a nice night, we'll take a drive down the beach. My wife and I have got a 71 Alpha Spider that's pretty fantastic for that task.
So, you seeing lots of products, is there like a specific cool or game-changing product you've seen in the last year, or maybe something that you may know about coming up at SEMA or PRI this year?
Yeah, actually, the biggest game changer I've seen was just announced by Haggerty.
Okay.
They are taking the Airbnb model and doing that with classic cars. So basically, if you've got a classic car that you want to rent out, just like you'd rent out your beach house, you've got an E-Type and you want to share it, they will insure it. And
Really?
There's a whole network set up. This has just got announced about 3 weeks ago at Monterey. So I think this is a game changer, because let's say you've always wanted a Mustang, a 65 Mustang, but you've never driven one. This gives you a chance to rent one for a week to see if you like it. Or let's say you want to come on our Smoky Mountain Tour or Orange Blossom Tour, but you're living in California, and the expense of shipping your car out to Florida is crazy. So you can basically, like Airbnb, you can rent a classic sports car for a week and come on our tour. So I think this is really, it's going to open up the hobby to a lot of younger people. So a lot of people say, boy, why rent a Camry for a week when I can rent a Triumph Spitfire? How fun would that be?
So, I mean, I got to ask an honest question. Do you think people will actually put their cars up for rental?
I would. Yeah, I'd put my Spitfire up. I wouldn't put my Shelby Mustang up. And I talked to the people at Haggerty about it, and I said, so what about a 427 Cobra? And they said, no, that's not going to be on the list.
Okay.
Because that's
so they're going to
kill yourself.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Like, I'll drive the hell out of my Camaro, but I don't really want anybody else doing that to it. So they're mostly looking for maybe concourse cruisers. Not concourse level, but
driver quality cars.
Cool driver cars. Okay.
I think I think it'll work. I mean, I wouldn't put my lake house up for rent, but some people do, obviously, because Airbnb is a very successful concept.
Yeah,
what's the difference between putting up your beach house or putting up your E-Type?
Yeah.
I mean, well,
that's interesting. I hadn't seen that, so that will be cool. I like the idea. Well, like when you go to an event, you can rent somebody else's car.
I didn't mean to turn that into a plug for Haggerty, but I thought that was a pretty innovative idea. I mean, and they're doing stuff like that to get people into the hobby because they'd like to sell more insurance policies. I mean, if you drove my Spitfire for a week and then found out that it's only worth $5,000, you'd probably say, "Boy, I want one of those. That's cool."
I want one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then they have excellent rates on insurance because they know everybody takes good care of them and doesn't wreck them. So very cool.
I think it's a very, very innovative concept that I just found out about.
Well, to end here, what's the best way to get in touch with your company and find out more about it? What are the specific locations that they can find out information?
Well, the websites are grassrootsmotorsports.com and classicmotorsports.com. We've got Facebook pages for both.
Are you guys doing Instagram?
Yeah, we do that too.
Couple photos here and there, just to kind of get everybody, direct them towards the website or the Facebook pages.
Yeah. You can send me an email, tim@grassrootsmotorsports.com. Like I said, I answer every one.
Still doing that, huh?
Yep.
Well, again, I want to thank you for, coming on and sharing some of your insight. And, I'm really excited to hear about how the magazine has changed and what you guys are doing moving forward. So thanks again.
All right. Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum